Me growing up in an alcoholic environment, I am so grateful that experience happened for me. Now that's the shift right there. Many people say, oh, this happened to me. When you say it happens to you, you're a victim, you're passive, you're just part of that story. So now I'm able to say it. I am so grateful this happened for me because I quit drinking. I show up more presently with my kids. I'm very committed to my wife. And I know the kind of person, the kind of parent I'm going to be.
That was my guest today, Raúl Pereyra, an executive coach whose work is deeply rooted in his own journey, from growing up in chaos to reframing the patterns that once defined him. Now he helps others do the same. In this conversation, we explore the invisible bag we all carry and how unpacking it is often the first step to becoming who you're meant to be. This episode is also the fourth and the final one of the mini-series Rewriting the Script of Your Life. Welcome to Mind Blend. I'm your host, Karen Chong. In each episode, I talk with people who've experienced something real, and we break down what made the difference, so you can see yourself and the world around you more clearly, spot what you might have been missing, and move through life with a clearer way forward. If you like what you're hearing, share with those around you and subscribe to Mind Blend. You will help a lot in spreading the insights for anyone who can use them. Let's blend. Hi, Raúl. Welcome to Mind Blend.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to contribute my insight and just learn more and have a positive conversation. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you as well, because Raúl and I went to the same university.
Woo-hoo.
It's not that common nowadays, now that I'm living in London, to meet a fellow alumni. So I'm very excited. And I want to ask you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into becoming an executive coach.
Okay, thank you for that great introduction. So I'm Raúl T. Pereyra, originally from Southern California, and background is Mexican immigrants. My parents, I'm first generation. A lot of the work that I used to do really centered around learning and development, human resources, teaching. I have a master's degree, so I was able to teach at the community college level. So I found myself always gravitating towards standing up and speaking to people or with people and having those kinds of dialogues where I'm imparting knowledge. That's always been a big interest in my life, you see, because one of the things that I always struggled with, I grew up, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. So I grew up in an alcoholic household. And, my father was a violent alcoholic. So it was stressful. It was difficult. It was traumatic growing up in that household. So I spent as much time away from home, partying, being outside, hanging out all day. As a teen, obviously I was gone like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, gone, again, party and underage drinking, probably doing some of the things that I shouldn't have been doing at such a young age. I just remember as a young teen and then as a young adult, always this idea, I think the word that comes to mind is escaping or this idea of, let me just go out and teach. Let me go out and engage with others. Let me go out there. I was always the person who would try to step up in a leadership role and always the person who would try to do something, coming from that background, with an adult, an alcoholic father,
Mm-hmm.
I never knew if I was going to get the loving, caring version or if I was going to get the violent version.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'll be honest with you. I always looked at myself. I'm just going to do something. I'm just going to get out.
Uh-huh.
And now that I think about it, actually, the love and the nurturing that I did get at home really came from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the crazy part. I didn't want to be like her, meaning trapped in an abusive alcoholic relationship. So I actually saw myself as leaving the nest and just moving on. And this is why I ended up leaving Southern California to the Bay Area at UC Berkeley, where we both went to university. So that's kind of the origin story, so to speak, a little bit of who I am and some of the deep emotional motivations of later on as kind of I start discovering my voice as a coach.
Hmm. But coaching hasn't been what you've been doing this whole time, I imagine. No one graduates college and start, I'm going to become a
Yeah,
coach.
that's true.
So tell us a little bit more about the journey that led you down this path.
Okay. So just to pick up along this story as I shared with you, um, in 2019 we moved from
Hmm.
Southern California to the San Joaquin Valley in California here. This is the city called Fresno, but it's right next door to Fresno. It's called Clovis. And my wife's family is from this area. And everything was great, 2019, and we're trying to figure out what we do next, you know, and we decided like, okay, well, I'm going to stay home with the kids and try to go out and do some work, some human resources, consulting remote, which I did. It was great. But in 2020 and 2021, I've about 4 years ago now, yeah, we were visiting friends in the Bay Area,
Hmm.
Christmas time. And I had a severe case of appendicitis. I mean, severe, yes, meaning I was in the hospital Christmas Day, emergency operation.
Wow.
And I can still remember recovering, and I was on the eighth floor, pretty
Hmm.
high, and it was raining, and I was looking down at my kids who were waving at me. This is during COVID, so they couldn't come inside to visit me.
Wow.
And, we're saying Merry Christmas. And man, that really broke my heart. That really just tore me up.
Because you were not there with them?
I was not there with them during Christmas Day. And
Hmm.
And that moment, after multiple surgeries, multiple hospital visits, we came back to Clovis. I was in and out of the hospital at least 3 or 4 times, and I had a PIC line connected to my, to feed me for about 3 months at home recovering. So I lost a lot of weight. I was just really not. I was in a dark place emotionally,
Hmm.
and I think that what helped me was I started learning and reading more about psychology, and because my background is really in human resources and adult learning,
Hmm.
and I always had this itch to improve myself.
Hmm.
And I always heard a lot of leaders and people talking about, hey, Raul, just give me the shortcut, give me the checklist, just throw training at the problem, right? And that never sat really well with me. It was always like, no, it's like you have to internally have to believe and have to be able to
Hmm.
change and have to be able to call out, behavior that's not right.
Uh-huh.
So I had a lot of thinking during my recovery, and at that moment I was doing consulting. I was doing part-time consulting remotely.
Human resources?
Human resources consulting.
Hmm.
I interacted with good people, but some of the owners or some of the executive staff were always the same. They're like, well, just write my freaking
Hmm.
policy and don't tell me about this behavior
Uh-huh.
stuff.
What shortcut were they looking for?
Well, exactly right. So the biggest shortcut was this: like, hey, Raul, a lot of my people are quitting, or
Uh,
can I just fire this person? They don't do what they want me to do. And I'm just trying to break it down where it's like, well, it's really about how you approach it, how if you view this person, your worker, as just a number or somebody who is coming in and just doing work, then you're never going to see them holistically. You're never going to see them as the person who they truly are and their true potential.
mhm,
And when you're not able to see them in that light, then there's no way you can interact with them in a very genuine and authentic way that you can actually see and support them in their own growth in their own right.
mhm,
Because when you do that, when you care about your people, guess what? Right? They're gonna care more about your mission, more about the business objectives. Like
mhm,
treat people like people. So that's really one of those shortcuts where I always like, can we just train the problem away? Can you help me create a case
mhm.
to fire this person?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, it's not that easy, right? And this is how I started forming
Mhm,
my ideas now as a coach, where it's like I've been
mhm,
hearing this in my professional life. I've been hearing that same voice or that same theme, quick fixes. It's always about the quick fix. And this is why now I'm like, okay, I decided to pivot and I decided to actually quit. I'll be honest with you. I quit my consulting because that was no longer calling me and I was doing more of the same. So that was kind of my wake up call. I went through this illness and there's more to life than just pushing paper in human resources. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, I've been living in fear. I've been living in reactive mode. And I just found myself thinking like, nope, I'm pretty much done.
Culture is one of those things that there's no quick fixes. Well, it may go faster if everyone's on board. So I know now you're focused on helping new leaders. So, and by new leaders is someone stepping into a bigger role for the first time, whether or not they're ready. Because I see this a lot. Is there's always this saying of, well, you will never be ready. So if you wait until you're ready, like that would never come. But then when it comes to career, I do think there's a level of readiness as well. So I'm really interested in hearing like how you tackle this, whether it's lack of confidence or lack of experience or just personal self-doubt. How does that look like when you're helping your clients?
I love it. I love that question because there's a quote that somebody said, for organizations, it's about culture, right? And for individuals, it's about character. So being able to elevate your character and your standards is really the key component to the work that I do. So as I made this pivot, I started going deeper into psychology and the learning aspect of human development and how we change and transform. And I was influenced by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's an organizational psychologist, and he has a framework, 3Fs, which is frame, floor, and focus. And I adapted that framework and I've added more to it and I made it more about the individual because he's talking about organizational development. And for me, I looked at it as what I call is understand who you are and the lens in which you are able to frame or reframe your experiences. If you've had a bad experience, for example, in public speaking or stepping up in a leadership role, that story will live in your mind. And because it was a bad experience, it's one of those, it starts to develop as a protective habit, what I call a guardian. So the inner critic or the one who whispers in your mind like, hey, you're not ready or you're not good enough for this role, they are really just trying to protect you. Because you fell on your butt, because you think you're not ready, because you've had some bad experience in the past, and they're just protecting you. So what I do now is teach people that to acknowledge the inner critic, for example, or the imposter syndrome, or the perfectionism, or hey, I'm not ready, so I'm not taking action. If you're able to start naming those protective patterns and that's happening inside of you, then you're going to be more equipped with being able to deal with it. So once you understand that there's a process that happens in your mind, right? A thought is, occurs first, right? And then it's backed up by a belief system. And then it's supported by some assumptions that may or may not be true. And then it manifests into those behaviors, the protective patterns that I was talking about. So for new leaders, for example, one of the biggest issues is, am I making the right call? Or am I making the decision? Or people are going to find out that I'm not confident, that I'm not supposed to be here. And I think to the example you gave is, do I need to move now, or should I wait until everything's perfect, until everything's lined up? So being able to unpack that in a very methodical way, using what we call positive psychology and my own lived experience, I think that's been. Now I'm actually very happy because my lived experience, especially the experience of growing up with an alcoholic and then going through this severe illness, has allowed me to adapt and use some of these positive psychology tools and frameworks that I started to develop and actually start healing and
Mhm.
actually start moving and transforming from the inside
Uh-huh.
and be able to show up in a more authentic way. So if I can do this for myself, I know I can do this for others.
Mhm.
And I know this is true for many, whether you're Latino or many other minority or
Mhm.
BIPOC
Yeah.
um, leaders who we're kind of wrestling with our cultural background.
Mhm.
We're like, well, shoot, I need to represent, right, the Asian
Yeah.
community, or the Latino
Yeah.
community.
It's definitely a little bit of
Yeah,
that.
there's some of that. So exactly,
Mhm.
right. So it gets amplified, and you're like, well, why do I need to represent?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's where the work that the true passion and the true support and the true success stories that keep me going is when I work with new leaders and helping them
Mhm.
understand and get over the imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, for example, or the
Uh-huh.
inner critic. And it takes time. It's not a quick fix, but
Definitely not.
it's but it's a beautiful journey. And I think this is why um, I finally found what I'm meant to do as my second chapter in my career.
Mhm. Well, that's great. You hear so many stories of kids growing up in
Hmm.
abusive or, alcoholism family. They don't turn out that great themselves. So I
Hmm.
really like congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
um, Coming out, doing the right thing for yourself and for the others around you. So you mentioned like success cases.
Okay,
Can you share any, like your favorite case study?
I have a couple. I think one of them is I'll just use his first name, Jonathan. Just super awesome, very nice man, just very great. He's a PhD, and I think working with him for several weeks, that as we talked, he was able to share with me. It's like, Raul, the biggest takeaway with your help has been uh, you helping me through being able to reframe my past, reframe my experiences, that has helped me, has given me the power to rewrite my stories, essentially, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think what resonated with
Mm-hmm.
him was this idea of the inner critic, that because I'm helping them discover, I can't give them the answers, right? There has to be their answers. And he's
Mm-hmm.
discovered
Yeah.
that it's okay to acknowledge your inner critic and still move in spite or because of the inner critic, and understand that
Mm-hmm.
inner critic is playing a crucial role in your development. And so it was really nice
Mm-hmm.
to see that from another man. And one
Mm-hmm.
of my current clients she's female, and she's actually the CEO of a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And she's one of my favorites now because we got to a point where, the work is hard. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it took several weeks to get where we're at. But I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we're now speaking the same language. And we're like, I'm super exactly. I'm rooting for her because her confidence
Mm-hmm.
level has transformed,
Mm-hmm.
right? It came from, you know, what, not as high level confidence, but now she's able to say, wow, I'm able to reframe or look at my daily wins on a day-to-day basis, and I'm building momentum, and it feels so beautiful and so light.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm showing up more confident. I'm showing up as a more present leader with her executive staff members.
Mm-hmm.
So just seeing her
Mm-hmm.
transform from where she was to where she's at now,
Uh-huh.
and her telling me how grateful she is. And the beautiful part, she's one of my favorite because she's now, her fiance is doing some of these tools and practices that we're working together. So I see the love and support in her relationship.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that's like, wow. Like, I can see a permanent shift and a new
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle in terms of self
Mm-hmm.
care and self growth, because she has
Mm-hmm.
a partner who is supporting her. And to me, that was just beautiful.
So was it like your work helped her reframe things, not just in
Hmm.
work, not just in the work setting, but in
Yeah.
general?
So that kind of bleeds into her personal
Exactly.
life.
That's exactly it, right? You have to be able to transform the inside first, right? The inner transformation has to happen first
Mhm,
before you're able to express and make change externally, right? Because this is where
mhm,
confidence comes from. You have to be able to say,
mhm,
I am confident in my own skin and in my ability to lead effectively. So therefore, I am taking the
mhm,
next step with confidence. And then you're going to show up more present.
mhm,
And that is so true. So when we started working together, she wanted help with trying to articulate like how she's going to scale the next level in the nonprofit.
mhm,
And in discovery and in talking with her, there was some other issues holding her back. And I think once we were able to look at the internal issues and deal with those
mhm.
stories,
Uh-huh.
that were holding her back, then she was able to move forward. And just really quickly,
Mhm,
I think what's important to highlight here is that as we're working together with her with anybody, part of my framework is that we get stuck in the past. We get stuck in
mhm.
many stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we don't unpack this bag that we're carrying, and you start refashioning it, then you're
Mhm,
always going to be held. It's going to keep you stuck.
mhm,
For example, she and my other clients. Once you start to understand that you are in control of how you reframe your past or your experiences
mhm.
and how you identify. Once you really have that light bulb moment of like, wait a second, I am the captain of my ship. I am responsible for my results. I am responsible
Mhm,
for the meaning I'm giving these experiences. What
mhm,
happens by default, and I'm guilty of it, I was guilty of it a lot, is that we tend to operate in a very default way. One day leads to the next day.
mhm.
And what we end when we do that, we're letting our past negative experiences, for example, drive our current. And what I'm
Yeah.
doing now is we
Yeah.
have to flip it around where you in the
Mhm,
present are giving meaning to the past and not allowing
mhm.
that past to drive you, but rather reframing the past, giving a new meaning to the past. And I'll give a brief example.
Yeah.
So for me, now I can say this with conviction and happiness, right? Me growing up in an alcoholic environment,
Mhm,
I am so
mhm,
grateful that experience happened for me. Now that's the shift right there. Many people say,
mm,
"Oh, this happened to me." When you say it happens to you,
mhm.
you're a
Yeah.
passive,
You're a
you're a
victim.
victim, you're passive, you're just part of that
Mhm,
story. So now I'm able to say it. I am so grateful this happened for me because I quit drinking. I show up more presently with my kids. I'm very committed to my wife, and I know the kind of person and kind of parent I am going to be. So I am extracting lessons from that traumatic experience.
mhm,
And it's not easy.
mhm,
It's not easy. It's a daily practice. But I could tell you this: if I never made that mental shift, just one word, right? It happened for me instead of to me.
mhm,
I probably still would have been stuck and angry and still blaming the alcoholism, and
mm,
that's not
mhm,
healthy emotionally. So I'm very grateful
mhm.
that I'm able to reframe that experience as happening for me. So when I help others reframe their experiences, everybody's unique and everybody will have their own stuckness or their own experience or past that is holding them back.
Yeah.
And being able to unpack that gives me a lot of joy.
So I want to go back to your experience a
Hmm.
little bit.
Sure.
I want to hear about the bag that you carried
Oh, I
or
love it.
used
I
to
love it.
carry.
Ooh, you're gonna make me cry. No, no, I'm kidding.
Share only as much as you want.
No, I am totally kidding. So I want to explain briefly. So the bag, right? BAG. It is the beliefs that we hold,
Mhm,
and the A is the assumptions that hold those beliefs to be true. And then G is guardians, right? Are the protective patterns like the inner critic, perfectionism, and whatnot, right?
mhm,
So for me, I carried a bag in many different ways. I think the most significant bag, the heaviest bag I carried, my first bag, so to speak, was as a young adult,
mhm,
because the bag I was carrying for the longest time was survival mode. Because exactly, I did grow up in a chaotic home, and I was missing in action. I was partying Thursday through Sunday, and I was always looking for opportunities to just be with others, build relationships. I had a lot of friends, right? I thought the more friends I surrounded myself with, the more loved or supported I felt, right? But
Yeah.
looking back, that first bag was really about survival. So I had to unpack that, recently. I'm a grown man now with 2 kids, and I carried that bag for 40 odd years, and just being, so you can imagine how stuck I was, or how my confidence level as a parent, or even somebody who drank heavily and used to binge drink alcohol, because that was, when you're carrying that bag, survival mode, like that's your identity. That's how you operate. So you're living in survival mode, reactive, and you're always looking and scanning the environment because there's a threat.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that has been the biggest transformation in my life, where I was able to unpack and test those beliefs.
What were the beliefs and assumptions and guardians?
Sure. One of the beliefs was really about, if I allow myself to be loved, or if I allow somebody, or if I love, that love doesn't last. Love never lasts. So you can imagine, we're going to have a different episode about love and my crazy road there. But nonetheless, this idea of like love never lasts. It was a belief system, like, right? And then the assumption was, if you get close to somebody, they're going to hurt you. So I assumed, right, right? And then the guardian was the actual manifestation of that, unfortunately, I viewed women as more of as objects than partners, and I'm sorry to say that was my operation during that time. The way I operated was like, no, I'm just going to get whatever I want out of them, but no meaningful relationship, because I'm not going to let them into my heart, because I know that it doesn't last. And if I do let them in, they're going to tear it up.
It will hurt you.
They're going to hurt me. And again, this is, I know that I'm not the only one. I know that there's countless men and women, right, that we carry around that kind of bag. And the way I named that bag was survival mode. It's like I acted, I believed, assumed, and acted out of survival mode, because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
So now the beautiful part of where I'm at today, in the last 4 to 5 years, is that I transformed that bag, right? So I was able to name and to say, you know what? As a child, as a young adult, that bag served me well. It was protecting me, right? Yeah. I learned at an early age as a child how to survive.
So your transformation happened in 2019?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So that turning point was a lot more recent than I thought.
Well, you have to think about it, right? Nobody will ever admit, right, that we carry these issues with us and these baggage, or we carry these assumptions and belief systems that are limiting us.
Yeah, they don't see it as a bag.
We don't see it as a bag. And I just like to keep it simple, and like to, again, through the psychology work that I've done and through my own experience, I'm able to like, wow, this is a bag. And then it's like, okay, this is the beliefs, assumptions, and guardians that come up. Like, I'm very honest with myself, right? I always was on this trajectory of engaging with people and trying to be a good person, right? I always knew deep down I was a good person. I always knew deep down I was moving in that direction. So the illness that I went through accelerated my transformation, I guess, or was the catalyst, if you will, because now that I think about it, like I was like, not that I was broken all of my life, but I was a regular human, just like you, right? We're talking to just like you, a regular human struggling with my own baggage. And in 2021, as I started, once I made that shift in my mind that it happened for me growing up as an alcoholic, I'm talking about a true transformation happened. And some people, it's religious, right? It's like, born again Christian, for example, it's like a true transformation, right? So I'm very happy that I was on this trajectory. I know there was goodness in my heart. I know I was moving along, but if I'm honest with you, it was just day in, day out, clock in, clock out, married, find a good wife, which I did find a great person, good kids, and just lots of default behaviors. And now, because of this transformation, it's with intent and with a very, 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 very clear purpose. And for that, I'm grateful. And again, this is why this idea of, having gratitude and being grateful for why this experience happened for me is so powerful. And this is why now that bag has been transformed into a jetpack, because those old stories that I used to tell myself are now being reshaped and reframed into rocket fuel, into behaviors, into new belief systems and new behaviors for me to act upon and accelerate and become a more present father, for example. And I think the example I shared is like the very clear example. The number one thing that came out of this is like, nope, I'm going to quit drinking. Gave it all up. No alcohol in my life. Zero.
Well, it's never easy because you've seen former alcoholics or the relapse. They just keep repeating themselves. So very, very glad to hear that.
Thank you.
If what we have said resonated with anyone who's in similar situations, because it doesn't even have to be them becoming the president or CEO. They can just be promoted. They have their bag, they believe they're not ready, they're not good enough, the assumption, and they have their protect guardian mechanism. What is the first step that they should take?
Okay, great. Well, I actually have a gift for the listeners.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's a free gift. It's a 5-day challenge. Everybody loves challenges, right? It's a tiny challenge. It's a 5-day challenge. It's 30 minutes a day. And it's the challenge to see how much you can transform within 5 days. So it's rtplearning.com/tiny. The word tiny, like small, TINY. So it's rtplearning.com/tiny, TINY. And there is an application, simple. And if you are ready to start or are ready and wanting to show up more confident in any aspect of your life, especially if you're stepping up into a new role. And it could be a promotion at work. It could be the head of a department or a group or whatever it is. And where there's self-doubt and you want to become more effective or start learning, and you're up for a tough love, and you're up for me challenging you in your belief systems, I do have that. It's a 5-day challenge where you can take it. And I make it free because it gives us an opportunity to be one-on-one. And many people, this may resonate with a lot, but you may not be ready to do it. There's probably going to be that one person out of the hundreds and hundreds of listeners that they're going to say, oh my goodness, this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for, and I'm going to take him upon it. And this is why I make it free, because I know there's going to be one person who this really hits home and they're ready. Because there's many of us, we're just not ready. But if you are that one person and you want to take me up on this tiny challenge, I would love to be your coach. It's free opportunity, 5 days.
Great. Well, thank you for the gifts, first of all. And a lot of the times you really just need that, And now let's play rapid fire.
Oh, okay, Karen. I'm ready.
Okay. What was the best leadership advice you've ever received?
Done is better than perfect.
Yes, I've heard that. And I agree. All right. Worst leadership advice?
Just go ahead and fire them.
Yeah.
which I have, and I regret doing that. Just
Oh.
very transactional, tit for tat.
Yeah. What was a book that changed how you think about leadership?
The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. This is all about internal. It's not necessarily a leadership book, but it's really about measuring your progress forward versus measuring yourself against some sort of ideal into the future, and you keep moving the goalpost. So just looking at, hey, I'm running my own race, and this is how I'm able to show up more presently and more fulfilled and more happy.
Do you have a morning routine or you just wing it?
No, I have a morning routine. So going back to the Gap in the Gain, one of the things that my wife and I have been doing for the past 4 years to support the transformation, right, is that we record our 3 wins for the day in the evening in a journal. And then we write down the 3 wins or the 3 gains we want to have for the next day. So each night we review how well we did those 3 wins for the day. And if we missed any of those, it's our job to reframe, to look at an experience we had during the day and transform that into a lesson. Because that's the power of moving in this transformation, where you can have a crappy day, but if you learned something because of that crappy situation, that's the gain. So we do 3 gains to share. We share with each other. She shares her gains and whatnot. 3 gains in the evening, and then 3 gains that we want for the next day. And it's just a cycle. And what ends up happening is we're just on this winning streak. We're just always winning, always gaining, and we're just moving closer and closer to our purpose.
Well, that's so nice. So your wife is also a part of the transformation.
Yeah. Exactly. So now it's our family, right? And so that's our routine is that. And I'm up in the morning, roughly around 5 a.m, journal a little bit, try to do my work in the morning, and then my kids are up and we got to get breakfast, and the day starts up, and then most of the morning is for this kind of work, as I'm engaging with you or with my clients, and then the afternoons and the evenings is for my family.
Nice. It's very not chaotic.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yes.
What do you think is the hardest part of your job?
The hardest part of my job. The hardest part of my job, 2 parts. One, in my mind, I live in 2 worlds. One is RTP Learning, the CEO of RTP Learning, always reminding myself when I get into a gap mind frame or thinking like, oh, I should be further along in my business. And I start comparing myself to others, that's a gap or a bag issue, right? So the beautiful thing is I have language for it. So once I hear it, then I'm able to pull myself back in and say, wait a second, look at all the progress you made. You're running your own race, Raúl. Don't compare yourself to others. That is always hard. I think it's part of our human nature. And the other part of it is I'm so committed to my kids and my wife in terms of being present. And when my kids do something that's not ideal or they give me resistance for homework or whatever it is, like I want to snap and I have to hold myself, or I have to like just listen to dad, do as I say.
You have to reframe it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beautiful part, because it is challenging. Here's the perfect example. My daughter, for the longest time, wants a dog. She has her list and she wrote the reasons why she's very specific. She's 8 years old. I want to get a golden retriever puppy, and this is what I want. I kind of like, because I'm like, no, but then I stopped myself and I was like, well, wait a second. If we get that dog, then who do you think is going to take care of him? And then she looks at me and goes, yeah. I go, so, but then it's not my dog. Do you think that's fair? Like you said, reframe it. And, you're able I'm able to have that relationship and a conversation with her in a more human-centered way, as a father-child, a more normal way, versus me just knocking her down and saying, nope, we're not getting a dog, but have her understand the reasons behind why we're not getting a dog.
I think that's really powerful. Your framework is not just helping you as a coach, you're helping your clients, you're also helping parents. Not have bags on their own when it comes to raising their children.
And and that's the beautiful part. I think this is why I'm going all in, and it's so purposeful for me to lead this way, because
Mm-hmm.
the framework is based on proven frameworks. It is based on positive psychology, and
Mm-hmm.
and you can see it, like you can apply it to an organization level for individual leadership, CEO, or even just a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to always stop myself. This, and this is why I tell folks that it's not easy. I can give you the steps. They look simple. You can write them out of how to go about
Mm-hmm.
unpacking your bag and reframing,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it takes a day-to-day work. And this is why
Mm-hmm.
recording your daily wins, for example, is one of those tools, right? There's many
Mm-hmm.
tools in my toolbox, but that's one of the tools that helps you move and break free from old stories.
Mm-hmm. Us living in the past, that is so many people's problems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You think about it, the past is past, the future, you don't know. So the
mm-hmm.
present is,
Yeah.
it should have the most weight.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful part, because we're so conditioned as a society
Mm-hmm.
to think about time very linear, right? Just like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
past happened and now I'm in the present and the future's going to come. But if you're not consciously evaluating your role as an individual, then it's going to be very difficult for you to move with intent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll be in the reactive mode.
Reactive mode, yeah.
And that's never good.
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having this
Awesome.
conversation with me. And we hope that listeners, you've learned a thing or two about how to unpack your bag or not let it hold you back. And definitely give it a try, the challenge that Raúl is offering for all of us.
Thank you, Karen. This has been great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Blend. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to follow and share it with anyone who needs to hear it. And let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or leave me a comment. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and let's continue to blend our minds and discover what's possible.